Let's see, sent items.
Would you like me to just bring it up on the screen?
Oh, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. So for starters, I think Marie made an excellent suggestion recently that we might start with a attendance. So that for the purposes of the video record, I think it doesn't really show up for the same way we see it right now on our screens. So I see various people on the screens. As I call your name, please acknowledge your presence. Marie Gavazzi.
Here.
Bob Doherty.
Here.
Evelyn Greenstein.
Here.
Paul Hickok.
Here.
Joy Charday.
Here.
Okay. And I'm Kirsten Lorscher. So that's who's present at this time. And we'll see if others join in. We could introduce them as they join in. So I think I sent out draft notes from our previous meeting, which was, I think, just before our board meeting. Were there any concerns about those meeting minutes that were sent out previously? Excellent. We've got some ongoing work at the main branch, some capital grant work. And Paul, are there any updates that you can give us in terms of the north and the east wall repairs?
Yes, the contract has been signed. Of course, we bid it already, and the contract has been signed with Debrino Caulking from Castleton. Their bid aligns very well with the original estimate. Their bid on the north wall was $319,000. The estimate was $320,500. And their bid on the east wall was $139,000. And the original estimate on that was $132,000. So it, as I say, it aligns quite well with the original estimates.
And so the contract's been executed.
Yeah, by signing, of course, they'll put us on the schedule for as soon as the weather breaks. And I expect them to begin certainly by April, but maybe before. And then they have 90 days from that point to finish up.
So you anticipate they're going to start in April when good weather comes and then finish within 90 days, I think is what I understood.
Right.
Great.
Paul, I just had a question of just my hearing. I didn't catch the amount for the north wall. I thought you said 19K, but it's probably low.
Yeah, 319,000, Bob.
319.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And how much for the east wall?
139,000.
So we need to allocate funds for that, right?
Well, we have to match, of course. You know, our match on the east wall was initially 7,000, so that's going to go up a little bit. You know,
So it's going to be 14,000. Oh,
And for purposes of the minutes, I have not written down those numbers. Bob, would it be okay if I reach out to you after the meeting or Marie to confirm those values for the record?
or Paul?
Or Paul? Okay. Paul, would it be would it be okay if I touch base after the meeting to get those numbers for the meeting notes?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I see Jerry DeSev has joined us. How are you, Jerry?
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, we just have started a few moments ago, so we're talking about the east and the north wall repairs. Contracts have been signed for both those projects, which are close to what we had previously estimated, and we were talking about allocations for those funds. And is there a timing on the allocation of those funds, or when funds would need to be dispersed, Paul?
Originally, the deadline was June 21, 2021, but they did extend that for another year. That was the deadline on the north wall. The other wall is a DASNY grant, and that deadline is a couple years away.
But I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Do we have any idea of when we anticipate billings coming in from the contractor? Will they be billing monthly? Will they be billing a certain percent to start and then the balance to finish at the completion of the project? Or do we have any idea what we anticipate the cash flow for the project?
Yeah, I haven't actually completely, yeah, it's partial payment. During the process, the 90 days. But I have to keep the two projects separate because they're two different grants, and there's different reporting based on that.
So we should be getting separate invoices from the contractor?
Yeah, the east wall is a reimbursal situation. So when they bill us, then we submit that to DASNY. The north wall is, we have 90% of that money. There's only a 10% holdover from the state.
Thank you.
So Paul, I have down that the deadline for the DASNY grant is May 15th, 2022.
Yeah, 22. So now,
And so we should make that with plenty of leeway then.
Yeah.
I'm amazed 90 days is,
well, you got another whole year. It's
Right.
2022.
right. But I'm amazed that the firm is able to do all the work in 90 days, in 3 months.
Who is doing it there? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
DeBrito Contracting is doing it.
What's the name?
Debrino.
I still didn't get it. Marino, did you say?
Is it DEBRINO?
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that how
Debrino,
it's spelled?
okay. Okay,
I don't know. So is that correct, Paul?
Yes, DEBRINO.
oh, Debrino, okay, great, thank you.
And are there any hazardous materials monitoring services that need to be procured by the library to support this project? Or does their waiver allow them to do this work without monitoring?
There was a waiver involved, which has already been secured.
So no monitoring required.
No.
Okay. Sorry, just trying a couple notes here. we go. We have the New York State Preservation League grant, the $15,000, which is then part of our, which may be used then for our local share for the SHPO grant. Help cover those costs. So I assume that as we have costs, we can then distribute those funds. Is there any thoughts about how those funds should be distributed with us as a lump or at the end, or we do it as we go?
That I did not discuss with them yet at this point.
Okay. Just curious to see how that plays out.
Actually, I'm hoping that we'll work out, yeah, I had in mind that we do this as we went along because it's kind of complicated. Again, it's a reimbursement situation with the state. And so I'd like to make a couple of payments on that, definitely.
Right,
It's a matter of submission as well.
right. So we can use it to sort of bridge that a little bit. Okay.
And what is the status of that? Do we have a contract with,
That's a little later in the agenda. I've got it
okay.
down a little further. So we'll touch base. I've got a whole section just for the HSR, if that's okay with everybody.
Sure.
I think we've got the public library construction grant application that went in. Have we heard anything back on that?
No, we're still waiting for the final approval. It's mostly a formality at this point, but I'm reluctant to do anything until we actually have that approval. Unfortunately, that's an inside grant. We could have started, but I think we should need, especially in this economic climate, wait until we have final approval on that. Sometimes there's a question, but so far they haven't asked any, I haven't heard.
Right, right. And I think we had already heard it was UHL was supportive of the grant.
Oh, yeah, so it went in with their support, and it's usually, basically a formality after that.
Right. Okay, Lansingburg branch. The 2019 Library Construction Award for the cupola. And I think there's a question about, getting the final DASNY funds for that.
Yeah, actually, they come from State Education Department.
I'm
But-
sorry, thank you.
Yes, we do have 90% of that funding. Again, it's an outside job, so we're gonna have to wait pretty much until the weather breaks. So we have not bid that yet.
You anticipate that occurring this year?
Yeah, actually, I think,
I thought that's what you said, that you figured it could be done.
yeah, I'd like to go ahead with that at the same time, that we do the other.
Is there anything that we can do to support you in bidding that process?
At this point, I guess not. I think I will sort of rely on TAP to put together a scope of work and go from there.
Okay. You think you might have that out to bid in the next few weeks or the next few months? What's your projected timeline for?
I probably at least a month, before we do that.
So February.
Yeah,
Okay.
end of February. It's already the end of January.
Time flies, right? Boy, oh boy.
Great. It's not my favorite month.
And February is even shorter.
Yeah, but you know, January is always supposed to be the coldest month.
Well, see how it plays out there. Any updates on the wainscot and the flood repair?
No, I'm trying to put together more estimates on that. I've got contact with Upstate Construction, but I haven't got any more estimates on it. I got to split that up because you know, right now the floor is much more important to get done. As I say, we only got 3,400 from the insurance company.
Right.
So we'll see if we can, I'm gonna try to get the cost of this thing down a bit.
So you want to prioritize the floor reconstruction before the wainscot.
Yeah, and perhaps do that and then worry about the wainscoting in the future here.
Okay, makes sense, makes sense. And with the Lansingburg branch closed right now, and this is indoor work, it'd probably be great to be able to do that work now, so it reduces any disruption.
Yeah, I can, like I said, if I can get a decent price, we'll go ahead and do something with it. The Lansingburg does has some hours, but it's not completely closed, but it's very limited
Right.
right now. So it's
I'm sorry.
easy to work around.
You think you'll have prices next month?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank
On
you,
my agenda.
thank you. Are there any other things that are in the grant stage or in the construction stage that we should bring forward? Okay,
I guess that's it. That's quite a bit on my plate.
thank you. Then I think if it's okay with folks, I'd like to move on to talk a little bit about the historic structures report for the Hart Library, and hear how that's moving along. The board did select Misi Cohen Wilson Baker, and there have been verbal conversations with them as well as all the other proposers, and thanking them for their proposals, and letting Misi Cohen Wilson Baker know verbally that we have decided to move ahead with their proposal. Paul, is there any update on letter of intent?
Yes, I did send the acceptance letter to Larry. And I set up a meeting. We had a meeting Monday. I had a meeting with Larry and Wilson and Gina Blennis, who's going to be sort of manager of the project. So
Sorry,
we
who was that?
quite a while and you know, discussed a number of things. They're going to get started right away. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll see some action.
And what actions do you anticipate in the next few weeks? Do you think it's going to be?
They're going to be doing, what they want to do is, you know, with the drone, the photographic work, which gives them a way to actually draw the whole building. I mean, all of the dimensions are there automatically, and you know, so they can work from that. So that'll be the first thing, and then Gina will be starting in on some of the history questions. I sent her some historical material as an outline, and she can begin to take a look at that and figure out what kinds of additional information she wants. You know, we've got a lot of things in files in various places, so I need to pull that together. But so that's where we are.
Excellent. Excellent. as the process develops, it'd be great to see what their projected timeline is in terms of milestones that project for the project, and then particularly anything that would affect the interviews with the board and staff, just so people can sort of anticipate when that will happen, and that we can at least mentally prepare ourselves for that process. So if they can provide some guidance on when they foresee that, that'd be lovely. And I recall that SHPO and New York State Preservation League both had requested to know who was being considered for this historic structures report. Did anyone reach out to them to let them know? Did anyone reach out to them to let them know who was selected?
I did not do that.
I was incorrect, Kirsten. I had seen your agenda, and on seeing it, I did communicate with the Preservation League. And they said that once we forward a contract, a copy of the contract we have with them, then they'll pay us the grant amount. Which is
Okay.
why I was asking about whether we're in contract yet or not.
And I assume, Paul, that Misico and Wilson Baker is pulling together a formal contract for.
Yeah. That I have not received yet.
Yeah. Okay. I've not been involved with contractual issues with the library in the past. So what has been practice for receipt of contracts and review of contracts? Does council review contracts on the library's behalf? What's been practiced in the past?
Basically, I have handled the contracts.
So you just sign them without review?
Right.
Okay. If you're open to it, I'd be happy to look at it with you. Probably, I believe that Misico and Wilson Baker are members of the AIA, and I would anticipate they'll be submitting an AIA contract, which is 12, 15 pages long, as I recall, and has got many places that can be filled in and elaborated on that can set standards that govern lines of communication, payment schedules, liability insurance, and all that sort of stuff. And they can, of course, then be tailored to the project. And just want to, it may be worth a second set of eyes if you're open to it. To make sure that we're not giving away something that we should not be giving them for that. And I think legal counsel will be much more knowledgeable about it than I know a little bit about some of these things. Legal counsel, of course, will give you the best advice.
Yeah. Sounds good.
And thank you. Is there anything else on the historic structures report that we want to go into at this time? questions, thoughts?
I did try to update the file that I keep in the building committee folder on the Dropbox, where I track the amount of funds that we have remaining after our commitments. And also the foundation, the Troy Public Library Foundation, has asked for an accounting of how the money that they've contributed has been spent. So I've added a sheet in that file to indicate what they have provided money to us for. And I think Joyce is prepared to display that on the screen. If you, do you want to talk about that at this point, Kirsten?
Sounds fine with me, yes.
Because it looks like you only have your
Yes.
lockbox.
Is everybody seeing the report okay? Is it showing up or no?
I do see it, Joy. Thank you.
Oh.
Yes, yes.
So I do need to update it once again for the increased cost for the project on the, which side of, I don't remember which side it is.
That's the east
The
wall.
east wall, the east wall, yeah.
Yeah,
So I will have to change that.
yeah, that's 139,000.
But I have added in the money from the foundation, the 25,000. And after our commitments for the undesignated construction account, I have close to 60,000, but we'll also need to be fronting some money for some of the projects, like for the DASNY grant, that's reimbursable. For the consolidated funding award, that's reimbursable. So we do kind of need that available, the cash available. And frankly, once the historic structure report is done, I think we'll be tackling projects that we'll need a fairly large match for if we're able to get grants. Does anybody have any questions on this before we, and this is always in the building committee folder, so you can always look at that to see. It may not get updated until just before the building committee meeting, but it is there.
Thank you for working on this, Maria. I appreciate it. May I make a friendly suggestion?
Mhm.
Would it be possible to add a update date on this?
Oh, you mean the date that it's updated to? So like I did it today, you'd want that date on? Sure.
If it's possible to do that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. I'll figure it out.
I think it just would, I think it would be helpful. Thank you so much.
So Joy, do you want to display the foundation tab? So this is what we've gotten each year. I hadn't realized how that it was only in the fairly recent past that the foundation was established. I guess it was established in 2015. I thought it had been in place longer than that. So under project, you see which project the funding was committed for. And we have completed the project that we had received funds for 2016 and 2017. And Paul?
Yeah.
I don't know whether the actual figures for how much the completed project costs were accurate on the other tab, but I think we spent at least $52,000. So we would have covered the 50,000 that they contributed toward the windows and doors project. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And then the others, we expect to do at least a couple, complete at least a couple this year. if not the remaining 3. So I'll be getting back to them based on what we discussed today and just giving them an accounting of where their money has gone and that it has been used for the correct projects. Any questions on this?
I do believe no, I lost connection briefly on and off, but I don't know if Paul said anything. The foundation itself's been around longer than 5 years, hasn't it, Paul? I'm trying to remember when they put the money into the community foundation. But the library foundation's been there more than that. Am I incorrect, Paul?
Are you saying that the foundation has been around more than 5 years? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Marie, didn't
The
you?
foundation has been around since 1990.
Well, that's okay. That's a helpful clarification because I was surprised that it was such a short time. So
No.
perhaps what they're referring to when they said that was that since it's become part of the community foundation.
To be honest, I thought it was longer, but then again, my sense of timing might be off. But the money was placed in the community foundation when Mary Muller was still on, the board president. So
Yeah, I don't really know how long.
yeah, I'm trying to think back to that. I'll have to look up.
Well, it's, I mean, it certainly clarifies things though to hear that it was 30 years ago versus 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
I don't think we need an exact number of years or dates, but yes, it did seem, I was confused by that. So it's helpful.
Where were you? I'm just curious, where were you getting in the information that was only since 2016?
From Mary Muller,
Interesting.
not 2016, 2015, because I went back and tried to identify the different contributions they've made to us, and couldn't find anything before 2016.
Well, that's maybe why they're asking for the summary. So this is very helpful to at least have the 5-year look back. And this is a great start. So I really appreciate your pulling this together.
Well, I have to confess, I'm doing it for them.
Well,
I want them to give us more money.
Right. May I suggest that on line 4, we add in under the status column that contracts have been executed and that work is scheduled to be completed or anticipated to be completed in June of this year,
Okay.
just so they can see that there's movement on that piece. Oh, thank you. I appreciate your pulling together these many disparate pieces and organizing them. I find it very helpful. So the only other capital project piece that I have is the Knox box, and the ball's in my court. I need to get that piece of equipment installed. Paul has gotten the device, and I just need to finish my part and get that installed. So I apologize if not gotten that done yet. I will try and make that a priority. We'll try and make that a priority for this month here and get that in place, so we can put that to bed. Are there any other, Paul, are there any updates on the building? Any changes, things that we should be aware of at this time?
Yeah, in a way. When I guess it was Taylor who was looking at the closet upstairs that leads to the loggia, and reported some water there. And I was a little confused because normally there wasn't a problem. So I had gone up there and sure enough, there was a ton of water had come into the Logia area and froze and it was kind of a mess. So I called Skyway and Skyway showed up and turns out it was a giant ice dam up on the roof. And so they took care of that problem. It's just a matter of, I don't know, the right kind of precipitation and the right temperatures, just put that thing together. Normally the drains are working and, you know, you don't have that buildup.
So any permanent damage from the ice dam from drainage piping?
Any damage, as I say, we already had some water damage a couple years ago in that closet, which we cleaned up and took care of any mold issues there. So basically, the water essentially drained off and everything looks good.
Okay, but the pipes have been, have not been leaking since then? No issues
No.
since then?
No, we've been good.
And do I remember that was 2 or 3 weeks ago or so when this happened?
Yeah,
Didn't one of the firms in an interview indicate that they had seen mold in there?
yeah, that there was some additional now. We're gonna have to clean up a little bit more. But it's probably based on recent water damage.
And that we may want to, look at that as part of the findings then of and the recommendations of the historic structures report. And I think this is really in spaces that are not occupied by patrons or staff on a regular basis. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions about capital project issues? If there's nothing further, then I think we had talked about our next regular meeting would be on the 19th of February. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Seems to be.
Okay. If there's nothing,
Is that the fourth Friday?
that is, let's see,
26th is,
26th. Thank you.
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's my apologies. So thank you. That's why we talk about these things. So thank you so much.
So we'll do the 26th, just to make sure I understand.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Kirsten, while we're all here, there was just one piece of information I'd like to give. It's not related to the building. But I had an email from Alan Walter from Bonadillo. He asked me for your contact, Paul, and Joy, so I provided that to him. Marie, I'll add yours to it as well. So apparently Bonadillo is starting to get ready to contact us for the annual audit.
Now that you weren't at the last board meeting, but we did discuss the establishing new accounts and that we wanted to talk with the auditors about that before presenting it to the board as to what we would suggest for the accounts. And I said that we would do what needed to be done in between and then present it at the next board meeting. So do you think that would be possible to arrange, Bob?
I do. I think that you, Paul, and I need one more meeting to just clarify that we're all on the same page. So we could do that this coming week. I think, we've discussed it and there are a few proposals. I just, I don't think we had a final plan, or it wasn't final in my mind. So I think one more meeting about the accounts would help us internally. And yes, I agree. We can bring it forward if we're all in agreement. And it seems that we are. You did a lot of work about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago at home. And I'd just like to, for you, Paul, and I to meet and confirm those.
Okay, yeah, that would be good if we could have something for the board meeting. We did have some discussion, so I think that people are prepared for more depth on that.
Right.
Hopefully a decision. I also would like to just mention one other thing that isn't related to the building. And I'm pleased to be seeing the rates of infection going down. Hopefully that's a good sign that they'll decrease even more. Paul, what are you thinking?
Well, I thought the increases were, due to the holiday season. And I did expect them to go back down, and they have. I'd like to see them further, but
Me
I think
too.
our appointment situation is working well. We don't have crowds in the building, and people have been careful. So
Thank you for the update.
Can I just, it's not building, I'm sorry, but regarding what you were talking about, the investment accounts and how we're going to set up these accounts, will the rest of the board be informed of the possibilities before the board meeting with enough time that some of us can look at what you guys have come up with before we have to sit there and make a decision?
I don't think there'd be any problem after Paul, Marie, and I meet to just describe what was going to the board and do it as a pre-release.
That would be,
So I think what you'd like is some preparation prior to the board about the content of what we'll be bringing. I don't think that's a problem at all.
that would be correct. All I've heard so far is that, well, if we put this money maybe in an investment account, and there hasn't been a lot of detail, and I do like detail, so I know what exactly is being thought out before, I have to make a decision.
Well, what we were talking about doing prior to this was taking a look at the 4 accounts that we had and describing them more purposefully for what they're used for, and all come to agreement. And it could, I think we need to have our meeting and then present it to you, but there could be a change in what we call each account, and just trying to clarify our language and the accounts so that we all have shared expectations of how they're used.
I think also it may not be as much of a difference as one might think. We're trying to, the reason we're talking about putting some of the accounts into the investment account is because with the insurance for those accounts outside of the investment account is exceeded. And so we want to take a more prudent approach to make sure that the funds are secure. So if you want to use different terms, there may be bank accounts, but then also we can have bookkeeping accounts within the investment account, which may not be substantially different from the construction account and the undesignated construction account that currently exist as bank accounts.
And I certainly understood the concept of making sure that there were, I will use the word in quotes, insured, because what Paul had termed was some accounts are insured, some have collateral. And I think we were going to get some more information on what the collateral actually meant for, I believe it was KeyBank. But again, it was very broad brush as a commentary. This sounds like there's a lot more detail being planned and maybe some additional perspective on it. And I was just hoping that we'll get a preview, as Bob said, well before the board meeting and well before that finance meeting. So there's some time to digest, what you are all planning.
When are you planning the finance meeting, Bob? Do we have a date for that?
Prior to the board meeting.
But do we have a date for it?
Immediately before the board meeting, so it's the first 15 minutes or so, or half
Oh, you
hour.
mean just prior to, but I mean the planning meeting for it. That's going to be that short meeting. We're going to get all this in. In that short little meeting beforehand in half an hour.
I think we could. It would depend on the outcome of the meeting with Paul, Marie, and I.
Oh, okay.
We started out with just trying to understand what's restricted, there were terms being used that we might not be in agreement with. So we want to describe that to start with.
Yeah.
And we may or may not realign the accounts and change the names so that it's clear what the use is and bring that forward. But if we're going to do any changes in the accounts, we want to be sure that the accountability is secure, flowing from any prior change. But the first thing we need to do is present you with the accounts, their titles, and their uses, and everyone agree that that makes sense. Before making any changes, we want to present the concepts. And then once we have a roadmap, then we'll work out a plan of when and how to make the changes, and probably include the auditor to make sure that there isn't some guidance available that will help us do it. So we'll give you as much as when we have our accounts in the way that I described, we will distribute that, but we can't make the decisions before we sit down together and discuss them.
Okay.
And you're not proposing to make changes at the next board meeting, so I think I heard you say.
Yeah, we're not going to be proposing change. We're going to be proposing things. They're not going to be in place or no changes of the flow or when we all agree what is to be done, then we can check with the auditors to make sure that the tracking of it won't be disrupted and get a board approval to do it. And then we can do it. But yes, we'll give you information as we have the information, but I think the next step is for Marie, Paul, and I to complete the description of the accounts.
And at the board meeting, Bob wasn't there. So there couldn't be a really detailed discussion as a result, which is why I suggested that there be the opportunity of collecting some of the information that we talked about, such as Paul having the opportunity to speak with KeyBank about more detail on the collateralization, and then come back at the next board meeting.
So, excuse me, I'm going to interject for a moment here. We've wandered pretty far afield from the building committee meeting.
Yes.
And so I just want to, if it's okay with people, I'd like to clarify our next board meeting is on the 9th of February, is that correct?
Yes.
That sounds right.
And then the following board member meeting is then on the 9th of March. So then I am completely on board with the next building committee meeting on the 26th of February. And I think everyone else had agreed to that as well. with that being said, I'd like to propose we close the building committee meeting. And then if people want to continue the other discussions on the sidebar, then I think that sounds great. If that's permissible by the bylaws of our organization. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
I'm comfortable adjourning.
Okay, then I'd like to move to close the building committee meeting at this time. Is there a second on that?
Yes, second.
Thank you. And are there any objections to closing the building committee meeting? Any abstentions from closing the building committee meeting? No, everyone's on board then. We're going to close the building committee meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. I think, Joy, if you want to, I leave it up to you in terms of you and Paul and Marie, whether you continue the recording or not. But on that note, I'm going to check out and I wish you all a great weekend and look forward to seeing you soon.
Enjoy your weekend. Stay warm.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.